Good afternoon. You're watching A News. I'm Dilek Tuna. These are the headlines for the hour. The EU received the latest trade proposal from the United States. European Commission President von der Leyen says as EU leaders conclude the summit in Brussels. U.S. Defense Secretary Hegseth says he has no intelligence suggesting that Iran relocated its highly enriched uranium before recent U.S. strikes. A powerful wildfire in Greece has reached residential areas, forcing people to evacuate their homes. A tense day of diplomacy in Brussels has wrapped up with European Union leaders tackling a wide-ranging agenda: trade tensions with the United States, sanctions on Russia, and rising pressure over the humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
Transatlantic trade, the war in Ukraine, and the humanitarian crisis in Gaza topped the agenda as European Union leaders gathered for a one-day summit in Brussels on Thursday. Top of the agenda, a possible trade agreement with the United States. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen confirmed that Brussels has now received Washington's latest proposal.
Today, we received the latest US document for further negotiations. We are assessing it as we speak right now. So our message today is clear. We are ready for a deal. At the same time, we are preparing for the possibility that no satisfactory agreement is reached. This is why we consulted on a rebalancing list. And we will defend the European interest as needed. In short, all options remain on the table.
The renewed push for a deal comes ahead of a July deadline that could trigger sweeping new tariffs. EU leaders say European industries are already feeling the pressure.
I pointed out the chemical industry, the pharmaceutical industry, mechanical engineering, the steel, aluminium and automotive industries. They are currently all burdened with such high tariffs that it really endangers the companies.
France echoed calls for urgency, but with caution. President Emmanuel Macron warned against accepting what he called an unbalanced deal and insisted the EU must preserve its regulatory autonomy.
We want to conclude quickly because it is in our collective interest, but we do not want to conclude quickly at any cost.
While EU officials remain hopeful, the White House has suggested that the tariff deadline could still be extended, though it's ultimately up to President Donald Trump. Negotiators on both sides say talks are ongoing. Beyond trade, EU leaders endorsed a 6-month extension of sanctions against Russia. The new package, expected to be formally approved in the coming days, comes as Russia's war in Ukraine enters its 4th year. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky addressed the summit via video link, urging greater military and financial support. But his country's stalled EU accession remains blocked by Hungary amid ongoing tensions with Brussels. Meanwhile, Hungary and Slovakia voiced concerns over the EU's roadmap to phase out Russian fossil fuel imports by 2027, seeking guarantees to protect their energy security. Diplomats say a compromise could unlock the sanctions package by Friday. On the Middle East, the summit took a cautious position on Israel's military operations in Gaza. Leaders reviewed a critical EU assessment that cited potential human rights violations, including attacks on hospitals and the obstruction of humanitarian aid. The Brussels summit concluded with EU leaders outlining next steps on trade, sanctions and regional conflicts, ahead of a series of high-level international meetings scheduled for the summer.
China says it's taking steps to carry out a new trade agreement with the US. The deal was confirmed a day after President Trump said Washington had signed it. China will approve some exports while the US will drop certain trade restrictions. Both countries say they want to ease tensions and work more closely on trade. The United States has reached an agreement with China on how to expedite rare earth shipments to the US. A White House official said on Thursday, amid efforts to end a trade war between the world's biggest economies. The deal follows talks in Geneva and London that had paused major tariff hikes. And to the Middle East now. In his latest message, Israel's Prime Minister says his country's military victory over Iran has created new opportunities for peace in the region. But Iran's supreme leader is warning any future US strike will come at a heavy price.
In his latest message, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that Israel's success in the conflict with Iran has created a dramatic opportunity to broaden peace efforts across the Middle East, including the addition of new countries to the Abraham Accords, which was also announced by the U.S. Trump administration.
We have fought with strength against Iran and achieved a great victory. That victory opens an opportunity for a dramatic expansion of the peace agreements.
Over in Tehran, in his first televised remarks since the ceasefire was reached between Iran and Israel, Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei claimed that the US failed to achieve anything after striking Iranian nuclear facilities. Khamenei praised Iran's retaliatory strike on the Al Udeid air base in Qatar, which houses Washington's largest military post in the region, and warned it could happen again.
The fact that the Islamic Republic has access to important American centers and can strike them whenever it deems necessary is no small matter.
Iran and Israel signaled an end to their airstrikes as a ceasefire brokered by US President Donald Trump was announced. Both sides claimed victory after 12 days of fighting, during which Trump ordered US airstrikes in support of Israel to hit Iran's uranium enrichment sites. Now, in Israel, residents are grateful for a sense of normality.
I feel freedom. I feel that I'm back to life. I went to do gym and the sun, and I can, go outside and have fun. It's life. And I know now much more to appreciate it.
And on the streets of Tehran, there's relief, but also caution.
Naturally, everyone loves peace. A ceasefire is a kind of peace, and thankfully it ended well. God willing, it won't be temporary. May the ceasefire hold, and life can return to how it was before, calmly and peacefully.
As Washington and Tel Aviv celebrate what they call a strategic win, Tehran insists it's just the beginning of a longer battle.
US President Donald Trump recently said that we should expect developments and surprising news regarding the Abraham Accords, suggesting new countries are set to join it. Previously, our James Ezimoha discussed Israeli-Syria normalization and the Abraham Accords with Hamdi Rafai, a political analyst based in Washington, D.C. Hamdi explained the reasoning behind Syria's interest in normalizing relations with Israel.
Well, Syria doesn't have any long-standing alliances or political stances. We have a new government in place, a government that has clearly made no expectations known to Israel. We must put this into the proper context, though. There's a one-sided battle going on, an asymmetrical war. Israel has decided to launch a war to then talk about peace. And peace is very difficult when one side is occupying the other side's country, and that's what Israel's done. In response to a new government with a whole new page turned here, we see that Israel has skipped the diplomacy time and went straight to war, attacking Syria, killing Syrians, bombing Syrians, creating military outposts in Syria. So to talk about peace or joining the Abraham Accords while Israel continues to engage in this kind of belligerent activity in Syria is really very difficult to understand. We have one side that wants peace, Syria. The new government has clearly said that they have no intentions of any kind of antagonism or foreign interference in Israel. Yet Israel has chosen to engage in a pattern now of foreign interference over the last 7 months, where it's supporting sectarian elements, separatists, people who are making sectarian claims based purely on a power grab. Clearly, Syria as a nation and the new Syrian government has no greater enemy than Iran. So when we see Syria silent in response to attacks on Iran. Nobody should be surprised. Iran is the one that brought Russia into Syria, that caused the killing of maybe as many as 1 million Syrians by Iran, Russia, and Assad.
U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said he's seen no intelligence indicating Iran relocated its highly enriched uranium before recent U.S. strikes on its nuclear facilities. His comments follow reports suggesting Iran moved its 60% enriched uranium from Fordow ahead of the attack. Satellite images had shown unusual activity near the site. Hegseth rejected claims that the strikes had limited impact, insisting they set back Iran's nuclear program by years. Meanwhile, Iran says no meeting with the US is planned, contradicting President Trump's claim that talks were set for next week. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said Tehran is still deciding whether diplomacy serves its interests after earlier rounds collapsed following US and Israeli strikes on its nuclear sites. Trump has unveiled a new offer to Iran, $30 billion in aid funded by Arab Gulf allies for a civilian nuclear program without enrichment, plus the release of $6 billion in frozen Iranian assets.
And there's issues today.
And they can do things. I don't see them.
The true extent of the damage inflicted on Iran's nuclear program remains subject to dispute. President Trump initially proclaimed the obliteration of the Fordow facility following Operation Midnight Hammer. His officials, including the Secretary of Defense, subsequently confirmed that the blow delivered to Iran's nuclear infrastructure was indeed severe. Yet what remains beyond doubt is Tehran's continued and now publicly reaffirmed commitment to its nuclear ambitions. I'm joined now by Bruno Gonçalves, President of the Institute of Plasmas and Nuclear Fusion, speaking to us from Lisbon, Portugal. Bruno, welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Now, has Operation Midnight Hammer truly amounted to obliteration? More precisely, have the United States and Israel succeeded in crippling Iran's ability to enrich uranium to weapons-grade levels for the foreseeable future?
Well, I think that it is clear that some damage was inflicted to the nuclear program. What it is unclear if it was completely damaged or if it just delayed the program for a few months. One of the questions that still remains is if Iran still remains with some highly enriched uranium. The reports from IAEA previously report that Iran had about 400 kilograms of highly enriched uranium, up to 60%. And there's the possibility that this material may have been removed previously. Although there are reports that says that there was no movement, it should be taken into consideration that 400 kilograms of uranium on this state, we are speaking with uranium that are in the hexafluoride uranium state, it is a powder, would fit roughly, even taking into consideration safety considerations, on a few cylinders that could be easily transported by pickup. So there is the possibility that this material was not on site during the bombing.
Okay, and why have American assessments both on the damage inflicted and Iran's pre-strike capabilities been so divergent?
Well, I think that there's a need to show that it resulted, that there was a big damage inflicted. Of course, we need to take into account the nature of the installations that were attacked. Fordow, in particular, is a very high-depth installation. Of course, the bombs that were used can inflict a lot of damage, but they would have to be a direct hit. And there's the possibility that if the known map or plant from the facility is incorrect, or if there's a huge amount of concrete on the buildings, that even only small damage was done. So even if it is a huge damage, Iran might still have enough material for about 10 bombs if they were able to take out this material, and the program may be delayed. We should not forget that Iran already had the capability to build their own centrifuges, so they may be building more centrifuges. And there are some reports that additional sites may exist. For instance, in the 12th of June, IAEA reported that there was some residues of anthropogenic uranium on Lavizan, on Varami, and then Turkus-Zabad. And they traced this uranium there. There should not be any traces there. So it seems that in a given moment, some uranium, enriched uranium, was passing through different sites. So there's the possibility that there are other sites that at the moment are still unknown, or that they are preparing other sites to continue the work.
Okay, and lastly, Bruno, what if anything, might US and Israel be willing or able to do to counter Tehran's efforts to resurrect what remains of its nuclear enterprise?
Well, I think that the only way is to continue, or they continue this bombing and war to try to destroy. Of course, they already attract some knowledge when the scientists involved in the program were attacked. But of course, this is a program that involves a huge amount of highly skilled people. So even attacking the heads of the program, there's a lot of people still prepared probably to continue the work. And in the past, there were some damage done by sabotage. But I think apart from the agreements, and this is extremely important, to have the agreements, to have IAEA on site monitoring what is going on, the role of IAEA is extremely important. So I think the best way to continue having monitoring and information of what is going on is really to achieve an agreement that allows inspectors from IAEA to be in Iran and to continue monitoring the progress. All the other will always be, will have an uncertain result.
Okay. Bruno, it's a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for your insight and time.
Thank you very much.
Now, Iran has urged the United Nations to formally condemn what it describes as the unlawful use of force by the US and Israel against its civilian nuclear facilities. Tehran says the sites were under international supervision and used solely for peaceful purposes. Turaj Shiraliu has more from Tehran.
Iran's diplomatic mission at the United Nations has urged the world body to refute the Israel-US claim of the preemptive legitimate self-defense and to condemn their use of force against Iran's nuclear sites under monitoring of the International Atomic Energy Agency. In a letter to the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres and Guyana, as the current chair state of the Security Council, Iran's envoy Amir Saeed Iravani said the pretext cited by Washington and Tel Aviv to resort to an act of aggression against a sovereign state lacks legal basis. According to the IRNA news agency, he said the justification to attack the civilian nuclear sites, which are monitored by the UN watchdog, was based on a willful and distorted interpretation of Article 51 of the UN Charter. Iravani urged the Security Council to condemn in the strongest terms the use of force by Israel and the US on Iran's nuclear sites, which are under the IAEA verification and are used for peaceful purposes. The letter was sent a day after a ceasefire, which is holding since Tuesday between Iran on one side and the US and Israel on the other side. Iran's parliament on Wednesday voted for suspension of cooperation with the UN nuclear agency due to its failure in condemning the US-Israeli attacks. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump said on Wednesday that the Iranian and US negotiators will meet next week to discuss a nuclear deal. Tehran has not yet commented on Trump's statement. Turaj Shiraliu, reporting for A News TV, Tehran.
As global tensions rise, China has hosted the defense ministers of Iran and Russia for high-level talks under the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. The meeting held in Qingdao comes as NATO leaders gather in Europe, with both sides signaling competing visions for global security. Manur Maktoum has more from Beijing, China.
China welcomed the defense ministers of Iran and Russia to Qingdao for a key meeting under the framework of Shanghai Cooperation Organization as global security tensions continue to escalate. The summit took place under the backdrop of rising tensions in the Middle East and the NATO summit in Europe, where Western leaders met to discuss military expansion and defense budget increases. Chinese Defense Minister Dong Jun hosted and addressed the meeting. In his opening statement, he warned that the world is entering a period of instability and uncertainty, driven by unilateralism and power politics. He called on all SCO members to reaffirm mutual interest, deepen defense ties, and present a united front in the face of what he termed as external interference and hegemonic behaviors. The discussions focused on regional security and counterterrorism, with China positioning itself as a responsible power committed to peace through multipolar engagements. By convening this meeting during a major NATO summit, China has signaled its desire to elevate the SCO as an influential and legitimate alternative to Western alliances in shaping the future of global security. Manu Makhloum, A News, Beijing.
A powerful wildfire in Greece has reached residential areas, forcing people to evacuate their homes. The blaze broke out near Palaia Fokaia, a seaside town in East Attica, and is spreading rapidly as authorities take emergency measures. With a high risk of wildfires expected this year, Greece has increased the number of firefighters to a record 18,000.
A large wildfire that broke out near the coastal town of Palaia Fokaia, about 40 kilometres south of Athens, has spread to residential areas. Strong winds have fueled the spread of the flames, prompting people to leave their homes at 4 seaside towns. With temperatures in the affected area reaching 38 degrees Celsius, the Greek Fire Service has deployed 130 firefighters, supported by 12 water-dropping aircraft and 12 helicopters. Footage shared on social media shows water being dropped onto the flames, with thick smoke rising into the sky. According to official reports, several residential and holiday homes have been completely destroyed. Authorities have not yet released the exact number of evacuees. Due to an increase in wildfires and floods linked to climate change, Greek authorities say it has spent hundreds of millions of euros in recent years to combat natural disasters. The government has also boosted compensation payments and invested in modern firefighting equipment. With a high risk of more wildfires expected this year, Greece has increased the number of firefighters to a record 18,000. Weather forecasts suggest cooler temperatures in the coming days, but the wildfire risk remains high.
Venice is hosting what many are calling the wedding of the century, as Amazon founder Jeff Bezos and journalist Sanchez begin 3 days of lavish celebrations. With a guest list full of celebrities and political figures, the event has sparked both excitement and protests in the historic city.
Tight security, growing protests, and a guest list stacked with global elites. Venice is the backdrop for what's being called the wedding of the century, as Amazon founder and 4th richest person in the world. Jeff Bezos and journalist Sanchez kick off 3 days of multi-million-dollar celebrations. Around 250 high-profile guests, including Queen Rania of Jordan, Oprah Winfrey, Leonardo DiCaprio, Bill Gates, and US President Donald Trump's daughter Ivanka Trump and her husband Jared Kushner have arrived in the city. Many were seen entering the cloisters of Madonna dell'Orto, where Thursday night's open-air welcome was held. The couple is set to exchange vows on Friday on the small island of San Giorgio, opposite St. Mark's Square, with celebrations continuing through Saturday at the historic Arsenale. With an estimated $50 million price tag, the wedding has drawn backlash from locals and activists who accuse the couple of turning Venice into a private stage for the ultra-wealthy.
Not all of Venice welcomed him because there are citizens who have totally rejected the economic system he supports, a system that wants us to compete with each other.
However, Bezos and Sanchez have donated more than €1 million to protect Venice's fragile lagoon. Meanwhile, strict security measures have grounded drones, paused gondola traffic, and kept luxury yachts stationed along the Adriatic, as Venice watches closely, divided between spectacle and protest.
Armenia may soon hold new discussions with Azerbaijan. That's according to Deputy Foreign Minister Vahan Kostanyan on Thursday. Kostanyan expressed a positive stance toward dialogue, noting Armenia's readiness to sign a peace treaty and support for further meetings with Azerbaijan. He cited the recent leaders' meeting in Tirana as a promising move toward renewed discussions. Georgia's economy posted strong growth in the first quarter of 2025, with real GDP rising by 9.8% compared to the same period last year, according to data from the National Statistics Office of Georgia. In nominal terms, Georgia's GDP for January to March reached approximately $7.7 billion. The GDP deflator for the quarter stood at 3.4%, while GDP per capita was estimated at $2,100. Key sectors driving growth included education, healthcare and social services, as well as information and communication industries. Afghanistan's diplomatic ties continue to strengthen on the international stage. The Taliban announced that ties with Türkiye has upgraded to ambassadorial level. Our correspondent Tamim Bahis has more from Kabul.
In Ankara, a major diplomatic milestone was marked as Afghanistan's acting foreign minister Amir Khan Muttaqi announced the elevation of bilateral ties between Kabul and Ankara to full ambassadorial status. During a meeting, Minister Muttaqi introduced Saniullah Farahmand as the new ambassador extraordinary and plenipotentiary of Afghanistan to Türkiye. This move positions Türkiye as the sixth country to recognize diplomatic relations with Afghanistan at this level, following in the steps of China, Pakistan, Russia, the UAE and Uzbekistan. The announcement is being seen as another step by Kabul to legitimize its government on the international stage. While the upgrade in ties may not equate to full diplomatic recognition, it does allow for greater coordination on issues like trade, migration and regional security. Türkiye has long been a key player in Afghan affairs, historically maintaining dialogue even in periods of political transition. With Türkiye's latest move, Afghanistan government gains another diplomatic foothold, although challenges remain in seeking broader international legitimacy. This is Tamim Bahis in Kabul for A News.
The Israel-Iran conflict has cast a long and unsettling shadow across the South Caucasus, where governments have treaded cautiously, avoiding entanglement. Against this backdrop, the first official phone conversation with President Ilham Aliyev of Azerbaijan and his Iranian counterpart Masoud Pezeshkian has garnered considerable attention. For many analysts, the Israel-Iran conflict was a real test for Baku and Tehran, which have recently made mutual efforts to normalize their relations, achieving considerable progress. And now we're joined live by Matthew Briezer, former U.S. ambassador to Azerbaijan from Istanbul, Türkiye. Matthew, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me join.
Now, what does this telephone exchange and the limited information made public about it tell us about the current state of Azerbaijani-Iranian relations?
Well, as you acknowledge, we don't know. We don't know what they talked about. We don't know what was in the call, but it shows at least that the president of Iran wants to try to quiet down and relations with Azerbaijan, which used to be quite rough, and continue, as you mentioned, the normalization process. There had been a lot of accusations in recent weeks and months, and even like right after Israel had attacked Iran, that Iran was looking at Azerbaijan as providing all forms of, or many forms of support to Israel's operations against Iran. But I suppose speculating, the call from President Pezeshkian suggests that Iran is no longer worried about those things and wants a good relationship with Azerbaijan, I suppose.
Okay. And has Azerbaijan's conduct throughout the crisis, especially in terms of diplomatic tone and posture, met Iran's expectations, do you think?
I don't think Iran was paying much attention to Azerbaijan. Its leadership was fighting for its physical survival, right? I mean, as you may know, the supreme leader has been in hiding because he thought that Israel was going to assassinate him, as Israel did assassinate a number of military leaders and nuclear scientists. So I think that by virtue of Azerbaijan staying out of it and not agitating the ethnic Azerbaijani population in northern Iran, that probably relieves some of the concerns in Tehran that there could be even bigger problems for it. But its main concern has been, the United States destroying Iran's nuclear program and then the possible assassination attempts. And you may recall as well, President Trump, even though he had said the U.S. isn't seeking regime change in Tehran, he also said, well, we know where the supreme leader lives and we're not going to kill him. And then he paused and said, at this time. So survival has been the main concern of the Iranian side.
Indeed. Okay. Matthew, thank you so much for joining us and thank you for your insight.
Thank you.
Kyrgyzstan is set to build the largest mountain ski resort in Central Asia. Investors from several countries have already shown interest in the Alator resort project. According to officials, the resort is expected to become a major tourist attraction in the region. Fariza Kalimurzina has more.
Kyrgyzstan is steadily moving forward with building the Alator resort, which will be the biggest ski resort in Central Asia. This major tourism project is located in the Issyk-Kul region and includes 3 main resort areas. The entire complex will cover about 4,000 hectares. Jarkanbek Maksutov, director of Alator Resort, announced that the resort will have a natural snow retention system, allowing the ski season to last up to 7 months. Construction is expected to be completed by the end of 2026, and at that time the resort will offer around 250 kilometers of ski slopes, 2 cable car lines totaling 4 kilometers, and modern engineering and social infrastructure. Work started 2 years ago, including building roads, power stations, water supply and wastewater treatment plants. The resort is planned to welcome up to 850,000 visitors a year and create around 5,000 jobs. President Sadyr Japarov is personally overseeing the project, highlighting its importance for Kyrgyzstan's economy and its place on the world stage. At the same time, Kazakhstan is also focusing on developing winter tourism. Near Almaty, there are plans to build a new ski resort inside the Ile-Alatau National Park. To do this, authorities want to transfer about 20,000 hectares of protected land to the city administration. Together, these projects show that Central Asia is becoming an important region for global tourism. But rapid development and competition for investment also bring challenges like protecting the environment and ensuring growth is sustainable. Fariza Kalimurzina, A News in Almaty, Kazakhstan.
That's the news from us in Baku for now. Stay tuned to A News for more updates.